Warmest temperatures of the year so far, just around the corner. Plus, we're adding some heat risk ahead. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods. We're breaking down some of the weather impact alerts that we'll be dealing with and how long some of this peak heat will stick around. All right, let's get right to it. Our weather impact alert goes into effect Friday. It lasts through Saturday. Early season heat will be the impact, including impacting our outdoor activities. Plus, those cars heating up very quickly, needing to be heat ready. We're transitioning now from kind of flood readiness into some of the heat readiness that we deal with, especially as we drive deeper into our summer season. Peak wind gusts for today, upwards of 30 to 35 miles per hour, but it wasn't the dangerously warm, dry winds that we were focused on. Instead, we have that cooling breeze coming in from a low pressure system just off the coast, driving in some of that cooler Pacific air. So it stopped the momentum of that heat building too quickly here, but it's right back with us. For tomorrow, minor heat risk. Now, this is going to affect those that are extremely sensitive to the heat. We'll be approaching highs in the upper 80s, and for some of us, right around 90 degrees. But then by Friday, we start to see more of a spike of this moderate heat risk in pockets of the Sacramento Valley, as well as the coastal region towards the coastal valley areas, and even through the San Joaquin Valley. So this is going to impact most people who are sensitive to the heat or don't have access to adequate hydration and cooling. Now, this will stay in place through our Saturday, but then by Sunday, things are already transitioning back to some cooler weather, setting the stage for much cooler weather, in fact, ahead for next week. Even a slight chance of some showers moving through. But again, what we're focused on the short-term forecast is going to be this early season heat with temperatures 15 degrees above average, plus that heat risk heading our way. And it's mostly because we've got the above average temperatures that were impacted very early in the season by some of the warm temperatures. Deeper into July, we're not so concerned about 90s. We've got our weather playlist, by the way, on ABC 10 Plus as we monitor these shifting weather conditions. We've got our extended forecast, like what you're watching right now, as well as weather explainers and climate specials. Check it out on ABC 10 Plus. You can stream that for free wherever you download and stream for free on TV. Our wind gusts for today, and the winds are predominantly coming in from the Pacific. Again, kind of putting a pause on some of the building heat we've been tracking throughout the week. But now we quickly turn our attention back to the heat safety. Look before you lock. Check on kids, pets, elderly that may be left behind in a car. It doesn't take much to get those cars heated very quickly. Shade and hydrate. Take breaks every half hour and make sure to have that proper hydration with water. Sunscreen and activities, wear SPF 30 and higher, and plan for morning activities if you can. May has started off with a good deal of heat, especially for the first day that we started off in the mid 80s. We saw a little drop with a weather system moving through on Saturday, but we were right back at it with above average temperatures Sunday, Monday, and certainly yesterday. Yesterday actually tied one of the warmest days that we've seen so far this year, that being April 30th and May 6th. We've also seen a number of days in the 80s from Sacramento executives. So those are going to be the top 5 warmest highs so far this year. Our average first day is kind of just recapping what we've seen so far and where we're headed. First 80-degree day was back on March 25th, pretty close to that average April 4th date. The first 85-degree day was April 14th, just a little bit ahead of our typical April 21st, but the first 90-degree day looks like we'll be right on target at May 8th, and the 95-degree day, May 26th, is the average. First 100-degree day is June 11th. Everybody always keeps their eye on that particular number, kind of the line of demarcation when we've crossed into the heat of the summer. So here's a look at the departures from normal, and this is going to be widespread heat throughout the state of California, where we'll see temperatures about 10 to almost 15 degrees above average. Now, as we dig deeper into the weekend, we actually see a bigger push of some cooler air coming in, and it stays with us through much of next week. We're under that ridge of high pressure is going to keep us much warmer Friday and Saturday, but our eyes are on this low another low approaches. It's not necessarily going to be a huge hit for us with rain. It does bring us a slight chance, though, by the time we start off the next work week, but it's mainly going to be a driver through the Pacific Northwest and just enough to bring back that onshore flow. Again, bringing down the temperature, so it's a quick jump up here by the end of the week and the beginning of the weekend, but then we're right back to some of the cooler conditions heading our way. Our average monthly high is on the way up. As you can see, once we're starting to head towards the middle and end of May, we get closer to those average high temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, and then eventually getting that peak heat in July and August, where we're seeing our average high in the 90s for the entire month. So we're certainly heading into the warmer part of the year. Our 2025 snowpack. So with these warm temperatures, we're seeing an acceleration of our snow melt, a little bit ahead of average as well. Here you can see some of the averages indicated in the kind of baby blue shade, if you will. And here's our current snow pack and then snow melt. So we're a little bit ahead of pace here, ahead of what we normally see through May and into early June, putting more water coming down the hill. So it's feeding many of our naturally fed tributaries into our rivers that will be very cold because it's snow melt basically right now. The Sacramento River is only about 64 degrees. The American below Folsom at 54. They are doing some releases, and they release from the bottom. So that could be really, really cold water. That's just the cold, dense water that's at the bottom of that reservoir. San Joaquin at Stockton 66. Tuolumne at LaGrange is only 53 degrees. And then we've got our Sierra and foothill waters still running in the mid 40s to right around 50, with Lake Tahoe water temperatures in the 40s. So even if you're doing a hike, just be aware all caution needs to be taken by any of the waterways, because roughly 20% of people who fall in cold water die in the first minute of submersion due to cold water shock. How cold? Well, we already talked about those temperatures, where we're sitting right now between the 50s to about the mid 60s. We can begin to lose control of our muscles. Also, it's difficult to breathe. So it's also difficult for first responders to get there and also try to get to somebody as quick as it's needed to keep them alive or out of harm's way and out of hypothermia. Below 40 degrees, no breathing control and losing control of limbs as well. So we're just above that threshold, but we're still kind of in that danger zone. This is usually the time of year that we see our highest dangers on the waterways because they're cold, fast, and running pretty high. Water precautions: if you do plan to head over to our beautiful waterways near water, wear a life vest. Keep a close eye on children. They can slip easily out of your sight and into some of that cold water. Avoiding alcohol. Remember, hydration should be water. And cold water impacts, we talked about the breathing as well as those strong currents. They're tough to get rescues. Especially with the hidden dangers that are below the water, being rocks or even a big tree stump that's coming down the waterway. Feet and ankles can get impinged in there, and it's tough to get yourself out, or for first responders to get there as well. So a lot of things to consider this time of year. Inside the car, again, it doesn't take much. Outside temperature at 90 degrees. Within 10 minutes, it's over 100 degrees. 20 minutes, almost at 120. 30 minutes, nearly 130 degrees, and we're over that within the first 60 minutes at 90 degrees at about 10 a.m. just because of the sun angle. As I mentioned, this is going to be a pretty short-lived cycle of very warm conditions. We get into a likely cooler setup for the next week, and then that slides ever so slightly off to the east, but will still be a little bit on the cooler side. Likely wetter scenario also off to the east, so we'll be heading into some slightly drier weather. Highs for tomorrow, though, we are on the way up. Before we talk about the cooling conditions, we'll be in the 70s tomorrow for much of the Sierra, 70s and 80s, even some 90s for parts of the foothills. As we head towards the coast, we're in the 60s still, but we're in a quicker warm-up period here for the Delta and the coastal region range. Will be in that right around the upper 80s to near 90. So as I mentioned, many places still in the upper 80s for tomorrow, but we're going to start to pepper in some of those near 90-degree temperatures. It'll be much more widespread Friday and Saturday. Even the Sierra getting in on this action. Highs in the 70s. Next week, by Monday, we're calling for a slight chance for showers, and our snow level actually drops to about 5,500 to 6,000 feet. So it'll be fun to watch to see if we get a few snow flurries up there. And for the foothills, our highs are approaching near 90 Friday and Saturday, and then we're dropping those highs into the 50s by next Monday with a chance of showers. And of course, we're tracking some of the coastal conditions with highs in the 50s and 60s next week, with again that chance for showers coming in on Monday. I'm actually going to drop that Monday high for the Sierra, just so you know, into the 40s. So we're going to correct that there. 3-day forecast, we've got highs in the 80s for tomorrow. Friday and Saturday, our highs are going to be in the low 90s. That's when we have our weather impact alert. It quickly is replaced by some of that cooler air coming in for Mother's Day on Sunday. Our high 81 degrees, and then we're in the 70s through much of next week before a slow climb back to the 80s by the following weekend.